In a world that oftentimes pays more for influencers taking photos of food or YouTubers like me talking about whatever nonsense comes to mind at the time, we sometimes lose the beauty, inspiration, and art that's at the core of photography and filmmaking. And with videos like today's, I hope to give a bit back to those doing extraordinary work that is rarely given the exposure it deserves. And one of those people doing such work is Martin, a crazy nature documentarian who spent 33 days filming polar bears in never-before-seen environments. But to do so was challenging, risking his own life, battling the weather conditions, and surviving in remote areas. So stick around for today's video to see the amazing shots, the equipment he used to get it, and the stories about what it takes to capture one of the world's most dangerous creatures.
The wildlife was always a passion for me. I mean, ever since I was a kid, my mom and I used to go to the zoo behind our house in Slovakia, and I knew all the trainers, I knew the rhinos, I played with the cheetahs. I knew wildlife was always there, and photography wasn't so much. My dad is a photographer. He was a famous photographer in Slovakia, and he had his own company there. And then we moved to Canada in 2004. And he got a 9-to-5 that was not related to his actual job, which was devastating in a sense. But in the other way, I got to spend a lot more time with him and watch him work. And I thought he was a magician. I was like, I want to be that. I want to make magic. Got into photography at 8 years old through him, and had a little point-and-shoot camera, slowly inherited down every camera. When he bought a newer model, I would get his old model. So it was always there, and it just developed, and now it's a passion to work, and it's still going.
In 2017, Martin and his father decided to work on a project traveling around Canada, documenting everything for Canada's 150th year anniversary. And it was during this time he discovered a spot in Canada many overlooked in the summertime.
So through that, I went to the high Arctic and went to Churchill for the first time in the summertime. And I just fell in love with the bears and in the summer. And there wasn't that many tourists around. I feel like in this age of photography and Instagram and influencers and all this stuff, if there isn't someone there to document it, we assume it doesn't exist. And it kind of felt like that with the polar bears in the summer. It was like, no one documented this. Well, you know, who cares? It doesn't exist. And that just wasn't the case. We documented a polar bear swimming, and beluga whales were playing with it almost. It was a bear completely out of his comfort zone. And then COVID happened, and I couldn't travel around the rest of the world. So it was like, let's do something on Canada. Let's continue this 150th anniversary project, even though that long passed. Let's continue what we started. Went up to Churchill in the summer and quarantined with the bears, basically. It kind of escalated from there. There weren't any flowers in 2020. There were supposed to be, but you know, climate change and all of this stuff, nature, unpredictability, all that played a huge role, and it didn't happen, but I knew I wanted it. And as much as I was dead after spending 13 days there, I lost 10 pounds and I didn't shower. I was awful. But I was like, I want to come back. And sure enough, we came back in 21 for 20 days. The flowers bloomed, everything fell into place, and here we are.
And this is the crazy thing. Martin has been doing wildlife photography and video for over 17 years. And this is the first year that he's actually made an income off of it. But he's put all of that 17 years worth of footage to good use.
I have a huge database of stock footage now that I supply to so many productions around the world. So you want to have that in the best possible quality, especially for that reason.
Stock sites can be the lifeline that many filmmakers use to make an income from, especially when you're taking photos and videos of content that no one else has. Which brings us to the sponsor for today's video, Storyblocks. Storyblocks is a lifesaver for the modern content creator who doesn't always have time to go film everything. With faster and faster deadlines every year and trends that change every hour, Storyblocks gives you access to an unlimited selection of curated professional content, including video, photos, music, sound effects, and more that will help you quickly bring that last-second video idea to life. As a content creator myself who makes multiple videos a week, having a tool like this is just incredibly helpful. So check out today how Storyblocks can make your life easier as a creator by clicking the link below in the description. Now back to some polar bears. With the flowers blooming and the polar bears hanging out, Martin had to prepare extraordinarily well for this expedition, going out in the middle of nowhere, enduring punishing weather conditions, living up close and personal with apex predators, and getting great shots while doing it requires a lot more than just point and shoot and a few spare batteries. This was a project that would nearly cost him his life, and it wasn't the bears that threatened that.
As much as you are around the polar bears, again, you can predict them. You can't really predict the weather in the Arctic. It's so flat that, you know, you're so vulnerable out there. We had 5 days in 2021 where I literally did not think I was going to make it home. And that's kind of downplaying it. Like, I ended up coming home and I was like, talking to my girlfriend, thing like that. She's like, yeah, I was making out a will for you. I was like, I'm not kidding. Like, I did not think you were coming home. Like, your parents were stressed every single day. I don't think they slept throughout the entirety of the time you were up there. And I was like, for me, I'm fighting for my life. Me and my assistant Josh, we're fighting. You know, we're trying to survive.
During one storm, the crew turned their boat into a kind of fortress against the wilderness, with screwed-in walls blocking out windows, 3 anchors to keep it stationary from the force of the winds, and solar panels to keep equipment charged. But they did end up experiencing some, shall we say, trouble in paradise, having to re-anchor and reorient themselves time and time again as the winds threatened to flip them over or send them hurtling off away from land.
I don't know what to do. What do we do? What do we do? Do we just gotta wait?
You know, the wind is blowing the boat away. It's like, okay, how can I fix this? Okay, I need to anchor it. I need to do this. It's so much physically, emotionally to deal with that. And you don't have anyone to rely on. You know, in the same way I can't go to Best Buy and buy a new piece of cable when it breaks, I can't call someone on a phone or text them and be like, hey, listen, I have a problem here. Can you come pick me up? Like, I shouldn't have gone out, you know, my bad. Like, no, you're there. You're not leaving. You know, you go in with that boat, you're leaving with that boat. You know, you can get evac by helicopter, but you're leaving everything behind. It's not an option. So you can rely on the satellite phone. I was constantly on the phone with my dad on the satellite, being like, hey, I need tides, I need weather, I need all of this stuff. I love you, bye. And I'd never say I love you to my parents. So when I say I love you, they're like, oh, something's happening, you know?
After days of enduring this, the winds finally died down and the crew could get back to work, and they had timed their arrival and location well. While the 6 days of environmental hell wreaked havoc on the crew, it gave the bears time to get used to the human presence. So when things were running smoothly, they could actually film without hassle, with the bears trusting them enough to show the intimate moments. Beyond just fighting for survival in the middle of nowhere Canada, Martin and his team had to make sure that they had the right equipment that could make it through these conditions. If you broke something, you had to repair it yourself or find another solution.
Camera companies hate me when I return things, and I'm like, can you clean this? And, you know, things are rusted and all of this stuff, because I don't baby my kit around, you know, I use it. It gets the full brunt of the expedition, you know, like crazy, but I don't overdo it with kit, you know, whether it be cameras or clothing and things like that, you know. I mean, I use Nikons, various Nikons, D800s, D850s, D810s. Drones play a crucial role in a lot of the content. 90% of the stuff that is on film, of the polar bear specifically, is on drones. Underwater housings, I use those as remote control cameras, actually. They're Aquatech housings, so they're not meant for deep water. And I have a 14 to 24 millimeter lens, which I absolutely adore. But if I custom design something, the dome distorts it. So I use the Aquatech housing because it already has a dome and it protects the lens. And it's cheaper to buy a $500 dome than it is a $3,000 lens. And the polar bears love to lick it and bite it and things like that.
From custom-built remote-controlled solutions to drones, choosing the correct gear to bring to the adventure was crucial, as a good selection of cameras would ensure that Martin could get many great shots without disturbing the daily lives of the subjects too much.
Again, it's the Arctic. It's challenging, and you prepare for a lot of things, but you can only prepare for so much. the beauty is in the stuff you don't prepare for. You know, I'll prepare camera gear for certain shots, and I have a list of, you know, 3 pages long of this is what I want, this is what I want, this is what I want. And half of that I don't get, but a huge chunk of it is natural, of just these animals doing their thing, and the environment reacting to us and things like that.
Even though Martin and his team would get great shots from drones and from far away, they had to get creative in ways to get in close with the polar bears.
You know, you set those boundaries. You walk that fine line of, I want this animal comfortable enough that it's not gonna attack me, but I want this animal scared enough of me that it does not look at people and say, oh, you know, friends. And you walk that line every single day, and it's such a fine line. They definitely sneak up on you. I did have a few. I have a bear guard. He watches over my back, or our back, and he's there 24/7. And usually I don't go out anywhere without him. But on top of that, I have a gun license. I have a wilderness first aid, regular first aid, marine license, guiding outfit, you know, bear guard license, bear safety, all of these things. Like, I have over 20 different licenses and certificates that aren't necessary, but for me they're mandatory, because I want to put myself in the best possible place. I owe it to the bears. Ultimately, the polar bear is the one that suffers. I'm gonna be an idiot, but it's the polar bear that's gonna come with the short end of the stick, because, you know, he's gonna attack me, something's gonna happen to him, or he's gonna think that people are okay, he's gonna wander into communities where he's gonna get shot. Like, ultimately it's the wildlife that suffers, so I want to put myself in the best possible situation to deal with that.
The bears got used to the sights, sounds, and smells of their company, and came to see them as just another part of nature to be oblivious to. A drone being no different than a bird, and as new bears arrived, that process would be repeated. Observe from a distance, then when there's some comfort, move in closer.
You hear it from, you know, Paul Nicklin, Bertie Gregory. You hear it from these guys when they are in like Antarctica, and a leopard seal brings them a penguin carcass and things like that. And, you know, you have that with like polar bear. You know, I was put on babysitting duty by a polar bear once. Like, you put that time in with these animals, you're gonna see a different side of them. And, you know, same with, why do we look at sharks as dangerous? You know, because of Jaws. Sharks aren't dangerous. People are dangerous.
So you might be wondering, why risk so much to capture these never-before-seen images of these beautiful animals in their natural habitat? Well, Martin believes it's just that. Seeing something we've never seen before lets us know that it's there.
And we love to wave conservation around it, but, you know, going back to like how disconnected we are from the natural world, that disconnect translates to when we see an animal, we see a black bear. It is one bear of an entire population. Who cares if we lose this one black bear? To translate that to polar bears, like I said, every one of them has different characteristics. You know, there was one specific bear that hunted terns, just one. That bear looked different, so obviously already he's going to be a little bit more attractive to trophy hunters. Since he hunts terns, he was going to potentially pass that genetic on to a different gene pool of polar bears. What if that one polar bear was the reason polar bears are going to survive, because he learned how to hunt something else? You know, so potentially by removing this one polar bear, we killed an entire species because we removed that one trait that got passed on to this bear, that he's hunting something else. To us, it's just another mountain. It's just another animal. In the grand scheme of things, that's just not the case. You know, in the same way that if you remove a person from the world, you know, what if that was going to be the next Einstein? What if he was going to develop the cure for cancer? You know, all of these things. That translates to the natural world, not to the extent that we understand it, but definitely to the extent that it's still there.
At the time of writing, this documentary is seriously underrated. It has roughly 7,000 views, nowhere near enough for the kind of work he's done with this video. So if you found this video interesting, we strongly recommend you check out the full production for yourself. Or if you want to see another arduous filmmaking process, but one with a less admirable final result, we could say, check out this video on the messy filmmaking process of Hallmark Christmas movies.